I've gotten a ton of questions recently about how I became a content creator, and I don't think I've ever really talked about it. So get ready with me while I talk about how I started doing comedy videos. I was born and raised in the state of Minnesota, and from a very young age, I just knew that I wanted to go into medicine. My parents were always very, I don't know if strict is the right term, but they were always very regimented. So we knew that school was of like the utmost importance. After I graduated high school and then was deciding where I wanted to go to college, I picked a small state school in the state of Minnesota because my parents had just gone through a divorce and my little brother wanted me to be close by. And also because I was able to get academic scholarship from there so that I wouldn't have to take out student loans. I also ended up competing in several different pageants just to win additional scholarship for school. Because I grew up in a pretty strict household, I was very scared of authority, and I think I still am. So I didn't even have my first drink until I was 22 years old, like never had a sip of alcohol until then because I was so scared of breaking rules. So I spent most of my time studying and then a lot of it just volunteering in the hospital. I did a bunch of volunteer work in a local lab, and then I also volunteered in the local surgery center just to kind of beef up my application to medical school. My senior year before I graduated college, I actually met someone that would soon become my husband right after I graduated. And I don't really talk about this part of my life very much because I want to give my ex-husband so much privacy, and him and I are still on amazing terms. We're still very good friends. He's married now with a baby, and I really want people to respect his privacy. If you could do that, that would be awesome. Thank you. So a couple months before I graduated college, I was working an internship at an immunology lab, and then my boyfriend at the time asked me to marry him. I know a lot of people will go, whoa, Haley, that's like so young. You were like 21 years old. And that's true. I was very, very young, but in Minnesota, that's like very common. A lot of people get married just at a really young age. Because I was graduating college and we had just gotten engaged, and I was also not willing to do anything outside of marriage or live with somebody outside of marriage, we ended up eloping. We went to Hawaii. We got married, just the two of us on the beach with like the person who marries you. We didn't tell anyone for an entire year. We kept it secret from everyone except for like our very close family and friends. Again, I want to reiterate, please respect my ex-husband's privacy in all of this. After I got married, I moved in with my husband, and this was right after I graduated from college. We started planning on what our future would look like together, and I wanted to go to med school. He was playing as a football player in Minnesota, and he had a very busy work schedule. So he asked that I wait to pursue medicine until after he had a little more free time. And I want to make sure it's super clear that my ex-husband was so supportive of all of my dreams. He wanted me to accomplish anything that I set my mind to. It's just his job demanded a certain level of investment of time, and when I wasn't there at the house making sure everything was running smoothly and appointments were booked and bills were paid and things like that, they would kind of fall to the wayside. So we decided to compromise, and I was willing to take a gap year or a year off in between medical school and when I graduated so that I could help him at home. I asked him if I could work temporarily at, it was called the Wedding Connection, and it was a wedding shop where I worked as a bridal consultant helping girls find their dream dress for their wedding. I realized very quickly that I couldn't just like do stuff at home without going crazy. So the job was a great outlet for me to like talk to people and meet new people and experience their stories. And I absolutely loved that job. During this gap year that I took, Sports Illustrated Swimsuit actually held their first ever open casting call, which was an open casting call on Instagram of all places. They were looking for models for this Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue, and it was always a huge dream of mine to be a model. So I ended up submitting to this swim search, and the trajectory of that completely changed my life. If you know anyone in football or in sports, you know that sometimes their life is very up in the air because you don't know if you're going to be playing the next year or where you're going to be playing or who you're going to be playing with. And toward the end of this gap year, my husband was actually signed to play on a different team. So we decided to move out of Minnesota and move down to Charlotte, North Carolina, because he was going to be playing on the Carolina Panthers. And I literally remember this like it was yesterday because I think it's like burned into my memory. My mom was helping me move out of the house in Minnesota, so we were like packing up everything in Minnesota. My husband was already down in Charlotte because he was already busy at training camp and preparing. And during that time, I got a message from Sports Illustrated Swimsuit on my Instagram, and I lost my mind. I couldn't believe it. It was a message inviting me to their first ever casting call because they had seen my video, which I don't know how. I had like 50 followers on Instagram. They had seen my video and they wanted to have me come in and meet them. This opportunity came as like a huge relief for me because I was so nervous about moving out of Minnesota. I'm super close with my family. I always have been, and I hadn't lived anywhere but Minnesota or but near them. So when I moved to Charlotte, I didn't know anybody. I had no friends there. I had no family there. It was a city that I had never been to and I knew nothing about. So I sunk all of my time into preparing for this casting and hoping that this casting would change my life. I started watching a ton of YouTube videos about how to do a modeling casting. I remember Google searching like what to wear, what to bring, what photos I should print out. When I actually went to this casting with my stepmom in New York, I brought boudoir photos that I'd taken for my husband for his birthday because those were the only modeling, they weren't even modeling photos that I owned. And eventually, after a year and a half of going to castings, doing runway shows with Sports Illustrated, me and a girl named Camille won this SI swimsuit open casting swim search, and we became official models for I think it was the 2019 issue, but next year's issue. Because we didn't know where I would get into medical school or what state it would be or how many years I'd have to be there, we decided that modeling was a better alternative because it allowed me more free time to be with him and be a wife while still getting to experience having a career. And that started an entirely new journey for me in life where I would moved to New York City part-time. I went back and forth between New York and Charlotte and Minnesota, just depending on where my husband was. And it was during these like 4 or 5 years of transition where my husband and I decided that maybe we were just meant to stay friends. He really, really wanted a family. He wanted me to have kids and to be a stay-at-home mom. And I wasn't ready to give up my independence or the idea that one day I would have a career outside of family or raising kids. This is no hate or no shade on people that choose to have kids young and be stay-at-home moms. I think that those women work so unbelievably hard, but I wasn't ready yet to commit my life to that. Most of our marriage was spent with me, like flying back and forth between wherever he was playing and my modeling jobs in New York City. When he finally finished playing football, we decided to kind of try one more time to fix our marriage, and so he rented this apartment in New York City. After he signed the lease, we packed everything up from the different states that we had been living in during his football career, and we moved everything to New York City. We shared 3 dogs, Pooh Bear, Skyla, and Spock, and we used a dog transport that we had used many times before just to bring our dogs they were in California at his house, and we needed to bring them to New York where we would be living in this new apartment. Unfortunately, on the last day of the drive, my dog, her name was Pooh Bear, and she was my first dog that I ever had. I got her when I moved out and went to school. The first night that we were living in this apartment, we got a call at 5 a.m. that Pooh Bear had passed away about 4 hours away from New York City, and we had to go pick up her body out of the car. After that, him and I fell into a very deep depression. I didn't want to live anymore. I didn't want to get out of bed. I didn't want to do anything. We were both going through like a very deep, dark place in our lives. We decided to carry through and get divorced because we both wanted such different things. We agreed to always stay friends and always support each other, and I am so grateful that we have. But of course, I was not making anywhere near the amount of money that he was, and I was making maybe 50 grand a year, maybe less, being a model. So he decided to let me keep this apartment for the term of the lease, and then I would move home to be with my family in Minnesota. This was probably one of the darkest periods in my life. I was dealing with depression. I was dealing with substance abuse. I was dealing with a lot of things that I had never felt or dealt with before in my entire life. And that is when my apartment tour with Caleb Simpson went viral on TikTok, which is crazy. The second my video went viral, I decided it was my chance to start posting comedy videos and just see if people even liked them. So that day I posted my first comedy videos, and they did really well. And then every single day since, besides 2 days that I took a break from after the Met Gala, I have posted videos every single day. The apartment tour video went viral in September, and the lease for this apartment came due in October. I had gone viral for this apartment that I felt like I needed to keep because it was the only thing that people knew about me. The only problem is my ex-husband could afford this apartment, but I couldn't. And I had to really sit down and figure out if it was worth risking my financial security. I remember sitting there on the phone with my mom for hours going over numbers and budgets and if this was the biggest mistake of my life. Thankfully, and I owe my ex-husband everything for this, he was the breadwinner during our marriage and he wouldn't let me spend the money that I made on bills. So I had a savings account with all the money I made from the wedding shop and then also from modeling that I used to release this apartment. My ex-husband allowed his name on the lease. Otherwise, I don't think it would have been able to even be re-released. After I signed my name on that lease, it was off to the races. I spent every waking second writing, editing, filming, basically making comedy content. And through that, I found myself again, that I could be witty and funny and that people could like me. It's almost as if content like reinvigorated my life. I could feel me coming back and who I was coming back outside of all the things that happened. And it gave me a purpose that I just didn't have for so many years. I gained 1 million subscribers in less than 3 months on YouTube. I hit 1 million on TikTok. My life changed so rapidly, I couldn't even wrap my mind around it. The world started to open up to me in a way that I had never experienced before in my entire life. And I finally found the community of people that I wanted to walk through this life with. I remember the first time I could pay my rent without taking from my savings that I had from when I was working and married. That felt so good. I remember the first time a celebrity team even DM'd me. I just couldn't even believe the things I was able to do because of comedy videos. I finally found what I should do with my life. And yeah, that is how I became a content creator and how it all happened so quickly and randomly. It just shows that like you can't really plan your life because life is going to throw things at you that you could have never even imagined, and you just have to either make the decision to go with it or choose another direction. But man, life is so freaking crazy. It all happened so fast, and I am so unbelievably grateful for every single thing that has happened to me over the last year and a half. I owe my life to this because this career saved me and saved my life and saved the direction that I was going down because it was not good. I totally stopped doing my makeup and got super distracted. But yeah, that is the story of how I became a content creator. Sorry, that was super long. I should have done like a SparkNote version, but I'm a yapper. So I love you guys.